Yeah.
And then they're exactly. I said, yeah, probably.
How's everybody doing? How's everybody's week?
Fast.
Slow.
Slow. Time doesn't work that way, guys. You gotta sort yourself. You gotta sort yourself out. You can't have a fast week and a slow week.
That just means it's even, so it works.
You guys balance each other out. Maybe we should do a poll, like whose week is going fast, whose week is going slow, and then we'll I don't know, figure this whole time thing out. Maybe we can write a book about it. I think they give awards for that. Only if it's good. Anybody have anything notably excellent happen this week? Or notably good?
I pushed our new design for our site live.
That's great. That's awesome. Did you build the site yourself?
No, it's like the John F. Kennedy Center
Oh,
site, so it's
yeah.
pretty big and it's. Harmony's like, I don't want to tell anybody because there's no bugs.
Let's look it up. Let's see the URL. John F. Kennedy.
Kennedy-center.org.
This one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cats.
Man, that load time. I'm just kidding.
Because we have big banners.
Wow.
Well, yeah, there's a live stream. Is it 6 o'clock already?
Yeah, I guess
Yeah,
it's
there's a
6:30.
live
So
stream. Oh, snap.
that's cool.
Wait, what machine?
Did
are
you
on?
build this? Did you build this timer yourself? This slider yourself? Is this you?
That's-
No? You were like, guys, step aside. I know how to do this. Coming in. Out of my way.
It's a lot of legacy.
Let the expert do it.
No, we had
Next time.
hired somebody to design this, and
That's cool.
we implemented it. My big achievement is the redesign of the slider seat process because
Can we see that?
Friendly. You have to click on tickets on one of the events.
Oh, okay.
If you're going to that butterfly.
Yeah. Well, I know I'm going to Little Mermaid.
Click on click on find tickets, and
I
then
just
click
heard from you.
on,
Talk about
APIs a little fast, yes, click on tickets. And then if you make the screen
Ooh.
narrower, now this was already built, I just made it mobile friendly, so the idea is if you make the screen,
Yeah.
I rearrange stuff.
Ooh.
So you can actually sort of use it, even though once you get to select your seat, it's quite nearly impossible. Because the dots are so tiny.
Interesting.
There's a zoom, but it's okay. This is phase one.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm gonna sit right here.
Yeah.
It's occupied.
Oh, that's occupied?
No, that's available. The
Oh, wow.
available.
I
There's
can't
different
afford to see the Little
sections, and
Mermaid.
they have different prices, and so you hover over the section, which is why this isn't mobile friendly.
So,
we have a mobile site, but
what's the cheat code to get tickets for free?
I don't even have that.
Ah.
Now, the only back door I can tell you, go physically to the building to avoid purchasing online fees because it's like 7, 9, 12% of the ticket
Interesting.
cost.
Is the fee if I buy it online?
Yeah.
Interesting. Why is that? Out of
Because,
curiosity.
Proprietary
Proprietary.
stuff.
Union stuff?
Yeah.
Interesting. Fair enough. Cool.
Is that why movie tickets do that too?
I don't know, I mean, we
Or
have-
concert tickets?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe for us, box office, I don't know.
Yeah, man.
But it's, ideally, those who work on the website would like to get that profit. So
Fair
that's politics and stuff.
Fair enough. Yeah. Politics. All right. Well, congratulations. That's awesome. How did everybody feel with the homework? Your to-do list. It's all done, so now you track all of your to-dos in it. How many people finished? Raise your hands. No. I don't know.
Find
I
that.
did not say I came away with enough information after the last one.
Interesting. In order to finish it. Okay.
It's a time issue.
Yeah, it's also one that.
It was too big of an assignment to do in the middle of the week.
Yeah.
It's like not enough. It's just hard.
Tuesday.
I feel like next Tuesday is always quick turnaround.
Yeah, it is. It's very quick. It's nice to have the weekend. Okay.
But thinking about it, like, the idea is doable.
Okay.
It's just, then you have to now research how do I make this happen? And so you're looking at old assignments, or you're looking online to try to find like the methods to try to get it to work. And so that research time
Yeah.
takes some time and you have to think about it.
Yeah. That's
And then
fair.
you have to stay away from the sites.
Does anybody not spend any time researching and instead spend that time like thinking about how to break up the task into smaller, more manageable pieces that you can kind of achieve with what you already know?
I imagine that's what we should be going about.
You should use whatever method like you think will help you finish the task the quickest, and if that's research, then by all means go for it. At the same time, like if you Google the task that I give you, like you'll probably come up with nothing or nothing helpful. And that's sort of on purpose.
Oh, yeah, no, that's, you break up the assignment into what you know, or like, the idea that you go, all right, it asked me to do this, okay, let me do this, how do I do that? Okay, it asked me to do that, how do I do that? Or I needed to convert this to this,
Okay.
now how do I do that?
Okay.
It's always
All
like,
right.
how do
That's
I do
it.
that? That process, always that research on how to do kind of comes into play.
This or that. Okay. Well, that's cool.
That's part of the CS of the class.
Yeah, that struggle is part of the whole learning experience. Okay. Noted. So everybody in their exit tickets, not everybody, but many people asked that we not spend so much time in review. So I've scheduled 0 time to review the homework, which now seems maybe a little aggressive.
Let's give it a whirl.
So I did push the solution, and today's class has a lot of material that we want to cover. And I don't want to try and compress it. So if you have questions, reach out, and I'll answer them kind of as they come up, and as I can, as always, and we'll figure it out.
Are we gonna like build off
more on like using handlebars and templating, or is
Yeah.
that just
So we're gonna use handlebars and templating every class from now on. So you'll get a lot, well, you'll get to use a lot, right? And we'll talk about it today more. We'll like jog our memory more about it, and we can revisit some of the stuff that we talked about. And then your assignment that's due today, or this due next time, you'll use handlebars.
Can we talk, I know you just said we're not gonna go over it, but like, I just don't really even conceptually have a good understanding of what it is, and I like to try to
What
figure it out.
handlebars is or what template is?
What templating is.
Okay, so templating is just a way for us to do two things. One is to break up an HTML page into multiple smaller parts that we can manage individually, right? Like one template for our to-do list. And then another, like the rest of our HTML page, in this case, was in the HTML. And then the other is to like add logic to our markup. Because in HTML itself, there's no way to do like an if statement or an each loop or something like that. So we can define, if we're looping over a set of to-dos, we can define a single template for what each to-do will look like. And then we can just leverage the logic and templating to render every to-do with that one template rather than having to write out that markup for however many to-do items we have. Does that make sense?
Sure.
Okay. That's really like, that's really the whole goal of any templating language, is to like make our markup easier to work with, or like more flexible to work with our data. And we'll see that today when we talk about, we're building a Pokédex for Professor Oak. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's gonna be really cool. It doesn't have every Pokemon in it, unfortunately, but it has almost all of them. And we'll see everything I just talked about, because we're gonna render a game for every single individual Pokemon. Cool. All right, so today's class is about Express. This is roughly the structure that today is gonna be like. We're gonna start by talking about the final project. We're gonna talk about web application architecture. And we're gonna talk about HTTP and basically like what is a server. And then we're gonna build a server, our first server, and then we're gonna build a Pokédex. All right, so this is where we are in class. We are making our transition from the front end to the back end. That's what today is. So all of this was front end JavaScript. As of today, we will be doing back end JavaScript. Server side JavaScript, yeah.
So Express is backend JavaScript?
Yep. It's a framework for building servers with JavaScript.
That means it uses Node.
Yep.
Is Node a server? So like, or do you create a server with Node?
So let's see. So unpack your question a little more, or what specifically?
I just know that there's like, you can create servers if you're using Node, but I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Which comes first.
Yeah. So Node is a framework that abstracts away, or sorry, Express is a framework that abstracts away Node's sort of native modules for building servers. Node is a version of JavaScript, a runtime of JavaScript that we run on a server. So there's two meanings to the word server. One is like a box that is a computer in a data center somewhere, right? That has no screen like the computers that we're used to, but it is otherwise very similar to any computer that you work with. That's a server. The other server that we'll use is our Express application, which we'll build. Yeah. Okay. All right. So we're going to start off by talking about the final project. You can either do a git pull upstream master and get the, or you can go to the link that I just pasted in the general channel and come to this page right here, whichever you prefer.
Excuse me.
Bless you. Let's see here. So our final project will be, oops. will be due on May 2nd, which is the last day of our class. That last day, we will all come in like we normally do. There will be another bucket of beer laid out for everybody. And we will be presenting, everyone will present for like 3 to 5 minutes or so what their completed final project was. As we get closer to that, I'll have more guidelines on what needs to be in that presentation. It's also in the link that I just shared in general. The class before May 2nd, our second to last class, will be entirely devoted to the lab. So it's April 27th, just like any other lab. We'll all come in, Christine and I will both be here. You can work on your lab. We'll help you answer your questions, etc. But we're gonna space things out a little bit before then. We'll have a couple of in-class, short, like 30-minute exercises that we'll do. And we'll have like, a couple of other deadlines that will make you guys meet, including one for Tuesday, excuse me, so next class. As part of homework, we would like you to submit 3 ideas for your final lab. They do not need to be at all like specific, just general ideas like I want to build an app that does X, Y, Z. Or I'm really interested in working with this library I found. I want to do something that uses this. Or I really like that app that you showed us for your friend's birthday. I want to build that exactly. Or something like that. Only a few of you can do that. Not everybody. It was cool. Okay. So if we're looking at the README now, this has all of the information that you will need. If you have any questions or if there's anything that's not actually in here, obviously feel free to reach out to us. The requirements for your final project are meant to strike a balance between being loose so that you have a lot of room for creativity in what you build, but like specific in terms of like one person doesn't build a slider that has a left and a right arrow, that when you click the right arrow, the slide moves to the right, and then when you click the left arrow, the slide moves to the left, and that's their final project, and somebody else comes in and like rebuilds Facebook, all of Facebook, right? We want to avoid that. And that's why we're gonna like spread this out, right? Like we'll have ideas, we'll talk about scope, we'll talk about features, etc. Like over the next couple weeks until we nail down on like an actual set of features that you're gonna build out and deliver by May 2nd. A lot of the functionality that we list here is stuff we haven't talked about yet. Like we haven't talked about single page applications. We haven't talked about working with databases. We haven't talked about hosting yet. Those are all things that we will talk about in the next couple of lessons, but are requirements for your final lab. And then if you have a really cool idea, like we can be flexible about these requirements. Like if you have a really cool idea, but there's no reason for it to have a database, like don't force like a database to be a part of it, or we're not gonna ask that. We'll figure something else out. So on your final, on May 2nd, you need to have your application finished and hosted, so already launched. You'll share the link with us and send us the link to the repository on GitHub. You'll be creating your own repository this time rather than forking one that we created. And then a 3 to 5 minute presentation. 3 to 5. I know that says 5 to 10 there. Okay. Cool. If you're looking for ideas, the gallery, General Assembly Gallery, has all of the final projects for all WDI classes around the world. And so you can look at these for inspiration.
Change it by the course. So it's like.
Oh yeah. I don't think that they're. Oh look, job search. Let's see. Okay. Oh. So let's see. This one was from my class last time. And then this dragon was from the class before. This is a Lawrence favorite project that anybody has ever done. So this one lets you search for a zip code, maybe. Oh, here we go. And then see all of the concerts that are near that zip code.
Cool.
Yeah. So if anybody sees a concert they want to go to. This one lets you create like a dragon character for yourself. Did she show this one on the first day?
No.
I didn't think so.
I saw it in the.
Yeah. I want to be green. Oh, look, it's me. Yeah. Now we're talking. Oh, yeah. Cool.
What's gift idea?
Oh, yeah, let's find out. Dragon loves GIF. We'll go with kittens. We like kittens. And hopefully that will be SFW, SFC, safe for class.
Oh, no. That's not like kittens.
Uh-oh. I guess, well, I am a dog person. Because I don't like puppies either. All right. Or maybe this isn't working. I don't know.
Fire?
Yeah. Like man.
I know.
Uh-oh. 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 Uh-oh.
What is this?
Whoa! Ah! Ah! It was bound to happen. It's Skiffy. I should have known. I should have known. All right. That was fun. I'm sorry, everybody who had to witness that. The timeline that I just showed in my slide is down here at the bottom of the screen, if you want to refer to it later. Okay. Does anybody have questions about the final project before we move on?
Yes, hosting.
Okay.
Is it supposed to be on a personal site?
Okay.
Our personal host site or?
Yeah, so I linked to a kit that you have to buy to build a server. Then you have to hook it up to your internet in your basement and install your application on there after you've hooked it up to the larger internet. Now, we'll talk about hosting. We have a whole lesson on hosting that we're still trying to figure out based on feedback that we got last time, but we'll walk you through the steps of like how to host an application, and then the expectation will be that you just do that, but for your final project.
Okay.
Yeah. So more to come when we actually do the lesson.
Okay.
Chris.
I've never like formally created a UI draft, so what does that like entail? Specifically, like just out of curiosity.
Yeah. We'll talk about that. So we'll do a couple of exercises. Like one that we'll probably do is have you share your idea with others and then get feedback from them. For the UI draft, we'll have you do like a wireframing exercise in class with just paper and pen or something like that from Balsamiq or an app or whatever that lets you wireframe. As a way for you to understand like what the requirements, technical requirements for your own application idea are going to be. Help us determine that it is going to be in scope, and then like give you a guide to work on when you're actually building it out. Cool. Yeah. Any other questions about this? Cool. All right. Well, I'm really excited to see everybody's idea submissions. We just need 3, so shoot for 3 ideas. We can always expand ideas, come up with other ideas, anything like that as the class goes on.
Oh, I have one more question.
Okay.
What's the average time that people spend on it, or does it really depend on the person?
Yeah, I don't know, actually. We didn't like track that last time. So we'll give you the whole class, second to last class. And then you're welcome to get started before then, once we've nailed down like the scope, to make sure that your project isn't going to be really, really big. But yeah, I don't know. The expectation is that it will take a little bit more than one class. Like you'll have to work on it some outside of class. And like the size of homework assignments will start to die down as we get closer to that, so that you have more time to work on your final project. Cool. Any other questions? Okay. Cool. So how did people feel about the homework? We already talked about that a little bit, right? Okay. We can move on. So here's a high-level overview of what we're going to be talking about, what we're going to go through today. We're going to start with a high-level overview of what servers are, some important terminology, some like important concepts that will be helpful to understand before we actually start building a server. So when we start building the server for our application, we understand what's going on behind the scenes. Once we've done that, we'll actually build our first server. It'll just be a pretty simple server version of our to-do list. And then after that, we'll build out the Pokédex for Mr. Oak. And we'll do both of those together as a class. So the first thing we're going to talk about today is web application architecture. And specifically what we care about is what's called full stack web application architecture. Who here has heard that term full stack? Yeah, does somebody want to give us a definition of full stack? What is full stack usually in reference to? Yeah, let's have Jolene answer.
Full stack is someone that's familiar with the back end and the front end of the website.
Yeah, so the back end and the front end of the website. That's absolutely right. So what is the back end? Or what is a back end for application, and what is a front end? That was one. Yeah, the back end is the server. And what's the front end? Or where is the front end? Sorry? Yeah, the client side. What's the client? Yeah, the browser. That's what I was looking for. Perfect. So when we're talking about a full stack application, that's what we're talking about. There's an application that has both a client and a server. This definition is getting muddled or confused, or has been over the last couple of years, because more and more we're seeing fewer applications with a single server, or where a company manages a single server. And more we're seeing applications where the client is not necessarily the browser. It can be a mobile phone for like a web mobile application. But at its core, when we're talking about a full stack application, we're talking about a client and a server and how they communicate with each other. So the first part of that is the client, which we've already talked about. For our cases, this is going to be the browser. And this is going to be the part of the application that our user actually sees and interacts with. All of the browser-based JavaScript that we've done so far has been client-side. So responding to events, manipulating elements in the DOM, etc. That's all client-side JavaScript. The client has to communicate with the server. So when someone clicks something, we'll update some data. And when they do that, or when the user clicks on something, we'll update the DOM for them, maybe re-render a template on their to-do list. But if we want that change to persist, we need to communicate that to the server. So we need to tell the server that some changes have happened. And we do that through a special language called HTTP, which we'll talk about today. The server is probably the part of an application that you first think about when you think about a web app or building a web application. And there are historical reasons for that. It used to be that browsers were not very powerful. And so the majority of the logic, business logic for an application happened on the server. A lot of very large server-side frameworks became very popular during this time, like Ruby on Rails. Ruby on Rails is like the majority of the logic happens on the server. The expectation is almost everything will happen on the server. And what that means is you'll have a full page refresh whenever you want to do something. For instance, add a to-do item to our to-do, because you have to send that to the server, and you'll do that by navigating to a page. But this is becoming less and less the case as browsers have become more powerful, as internet connection has become more reliable and faster. We can push more business logic to the client where it can feel more immediate to the user, and then only communicate back to the server what we need to. So we can put these almost on a spectrum. It used to be the case that all of our logic, all the stuff that we would do as developers would happen on the server. Now more and more of it is happening on the other end of the spectrum, on the client. Ajax, yes, is a way of communicating between the two. And we'll talk about Ajax next week. I think on Thursday, next Thursday. So a week from today. Cool. Okay. So we have the two parts of our application, the client and the server, and we have a relationship that exists between the two of these. And the foundation of any good relationship is what? The other foundation. That's us. The client and the server love each other very, very much. How do they express their love? Communication, that's what I was saying. Boom. Yeah. Yeah, through communication. Everything I just talked about, communicating data back and forth. Something changes, we let our partner know about it, whether we're the client or whether we're the server. Like any good form of communication, the client and the server communicate in a way that is extremely structured, so that it's easier to understand and it's easier for each to communicate their needs and wants to the other. This metaphor is dead. Sorry, guys. I tried. Okay. So let's think back about all that. Does somebody want to tell me what the client is before we move on? What's the client of an application? Marvin? Raising your hand.
I'll scratch my head.
You did that excuse last time. I really wanted to excuse last time. Nice try, Marvin. What's the client?
In our case, it's the browser.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. That's absolutely right. What's important or distinct about the client?
That's what the user interacts with.
Yeah, exactly. It's what the user sees and interacts with. Perfect. What about the server? Who wants to tell me about the server before I move on? What's the server?
Server?
Yeah, go for it.
So, the only examples I have are for the servers are built off of a Java. They have a Java foundation, and then you put another language on top, like Cold Fusion or .NET, and it's compiled, typically compiled once the page, before the page is ready. So the client goes to the browser, and the user goes to the browser,
Right.
and the client code runs. I'm sorry, user goes into the browser before the page loads, the server-side code runs, and then the page loads and the client-side code runs. So server-side code always runs first.
Server-side code always runs first, yeah. So that's getting into a really great point, which is what does the server do? We know what the client does, right? Server, what does the server do? The client is sitting here like, hey, I do all this work. I listen for events, I handle form submissions. Like, what do you do, server? Well, what are your chores? Yeah. Processing data, managing data in a database, working with like third-party APIs if we have any of those. What else did I have here? Yeah. Traditionally, the server would be responsible with building an HTML page. That's what we're going to be doing for the next 4 or 5 lessons until we talk about single page applications. But you would hit a URL, for instance, www.mymultibilliondollaridea.com, which is an app idea that I have that is going to be multi-billions of dollars in value in a couple of years. And the server would build the whole HTML page and then send the client that whole HTML page. That's how Ruby on Rails works. That's how J2EE or .NET or whatever these, whatever the framework that you guys use at work does. But more and more of that logic is getting pushed to the client as well. Most front-end frameworks now render markup on the client. React, Angular, Backbone, Ember. You only render on the server for the initial page load. And then all the rest of the rendering happens on the client.
You know, like Facebook and all those companies do.
Yeah.
You just like all the most recent stuff that you've done.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it makes sense. The client is really fast at it. Now, it used to not be the case. And it was a lot of stuff to send to the client. So now that internet is fast, more or less, and reliable in terms of connection, basically when you go, not so much with Facebook, but with a lot of applications now, when you go to the root page, the home page, you're downloading the entire application, whether you realize it or not. That home page is probably getting rendered on the server because the server is really fast at that. But then the whole rest of the application is coming back in that response. So from then on out, any page you go to is being rendered in your browser and never having to go back to the client except to send data back and forth. Cool. Okay, so let's talk about this communication. Like I said, it's very structured. It's a very structured way for the client to tell the server what it needs, and for the server to tell the client which needs it can actually respond to. The structure, the type of this communication is called Hypertext Transfer Protocol, or HTTP. How many people have experienced HTTP before? Yeah, everybody put your hand up. Every single day. You guys use HTTP every day, all the time, whether you realize it or not. Does anybody, well, no, we'll wait. So a metaphor that is often used to describe HTTP is the US Postal Service. We will send out an invoice, which is our request for something, that goes, the US Postal Service takes that, looks at the address, delivers it to the correct person. That person processes that invoice and sends back a response. The US Postal Service brings you your check in the mail. So sending, processing, receiving.
And sometimes
Yeah, and sometimes. Yeah.
How does HTTP is different from HTTPS?
Ask that during office hours. We're not getting into that here. Yeah. That's getting into security and certifications and stuff that we're not going to worry about right now. If you're interested, we can talk about it during office hours, but we're not going to worry about it right now. That's a great question, though. So the way that we send our invoice, the way that we ask for what it is that we want, is through a URL, or a universal resource locator. We've all seen URLs before, right? Yeah, absolutely. Probably a million times a day. Like any address, a URL has multiple parts. All of these parts. Some of these you're probably familiar with, like the path for the host, or maybe even query parameters. Some of them, like the port, you might not be familiar with. So these are all the different parts that we have in this URL, but they're scrambled and out of order. So looking at it, who wants to guess at maybe what the protocol is? What part of the URL is, yeah? Yeah, this HTTP right at the beginning. Good job scrambling, Zach. Put the first one right at the beginning. Good job. What's the port? Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah.
Colon 1.
Colon 1, 2, 3, 4. That's the port. This is where our physical server is going to be listening for requests. What's the path? Yeah, path to resource, right there. What are query parameters? What part of the URL are those?
Everything.
Everything, the question mark all the way to the end. Yeah, yeah. Have you guys seen query parameters before or used query parameters? Yeah. What are they often used for? What do you use them for?
I use them to display content because I had, if the URL is true, load in that value in the file name and display that file.
Whoa, Jesus.
Both broke.
Man, that scared the crap out of me. All right. Woo! Yeah, I tell them that
It was coming out.
it was. It's been doing that for a while.
That's bad.
Well,
So it wasn't the board.
man, my heart rate is still very elevated. Cool. Well, that was fun. I'm glad we got to experience that together. That's awesome. So last time I taught this course, we were over in classroom 5 over there. And I came in one day and they had one of those like crappy roll-in ones. I was like, man, what happened? They're like, well, the bulb exploded in the middle of class, like a couple of days before. So we had to use this one until we can get a replacement. And it took them like 3 weeks to get a replacement. So we had to use this crappy like roll-in guy for 3 weeks. But I made a comment like, man, wouldn't it suck if the bulb exploded in class? Well,
That's like, shouldn't happen more than once.
I feel like, yeah, that shouldn't happen very often at all.
It was the same class. No,
It was different classes. It was different.
Well, it's been for the last few years.
I would assume.
She had
Do you guys?
So you can smell it.
Oh, you can smell it? No, no problem. Is it the power cable? Yeah. Or reach?
I'm not using
Is there an adapter down there?
There it is.
Oh, there's one over here.
Could you?
Yeah, but I just said.
Oh, okay.
Cool. So servers, guys.
What is URL stand for?
What does URL stand for?
Actually.
He's like, oh, that's.
I just said it.
No.
You are listening?
It's because of the bulb. URL stands for Universal Resource Locator. Oh. Recording my face now. We don't want that. All right. Man, you can really smell it. Let's leave the door open for a while.
Can we crack a window?
I like summer filled.
No, none of these windows open. Okay.
See, I think this one might be better.
Okay. I have to do that on the other side. If I can put it like this. So while we're all here hanging out, everybody should have received a mid-course evaluation. I have received notice that only 6 of you have done it. Everybody needs to do it. It's really important. It helps us understand kind of where everybody's at with the course, where we're at, if we need to go over and review anything, anything like that, and overall what people think about the course. So, if you have the email and you haven't done it, that would be a good time.
Yeah, I saw that. Someone they had to take a survey, and I was
Yeah.
like, oh, I need to do the Slack. But I've been slacking on the Slack surveys.
Oh, you see, I have to do those too.
I know. I lost my login for a couple of weeks. Oh, good.
There we go. So yeah, why doesn't everybody go ahead and do that survey right now? If you haven't already.
How do you know? Yeah.
I don't know who has or hasn't done it, but I know that only 6 people have, and I think there are like 14 or 15 people in the course, so.
That's the problem. This is not great.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, that's fine. It looks like an old like TV or something from like the 80s.
Yeah,
At least it's in color.
I'm not exactly sure why this is like the only one that does that, so.
Alright. That's no problem.
Yeah, let me know if there's some problem.
Yeah, I'll let you know. If this one explodes, we're just gonna give up for the day.
Sorry about that, that's never happened.
No worries, guy.
Maybe they could replace all of them.
Yeah, maybe. Okay.
I don't think they got TVs.
My heart rate is back to normal now. Has everybody finished the survey?
I did it.
You did it? All right.
Is this on Slack or?
No, you put that in
every
an
day
email.
until we do it, so.
They're gonna email you every day until you do it?
Yeah, for 3 days in a row, so I
Wow.
was incentivized to.
So do it.
I was thinking
Otherwise-
too while we did it in class.
Whoa! Yeah, really? Why haven't you done it?
This is getting out.
Maybe that's why the ball break.
Yeah, it's all on purpose.
You not adjust that aspect ratio?
No, you just said we're stuck with this
Yeah, that's how it explodes.
No,
unless this one explodes.
I'm just gonna go with no. Ooh, it's getting a little brainy. I think they might be right.
Those look like one of those like old timey TVs or something. This would be perfect for watching Friends on.
Has it been doing that the whole time?
Yeah, like graininess or whatever.
Oh, I get like out.
Yeah, now that I pointed it out.
Yeah, it's got really long.
Yeah. One of those cool movies from back in the day. All right. Are people working on the surveys, or are we just telling them? Some people are working on the surveys. People are working on the surveys. Have you finished it?
Yeah, I did. I
Oh,
tried
okay.
it yesterday.
Oh, okay. All right. You're working on it. I don't know. I'm torn. Keep working on it, and we'll take a break, and we'll come back to this. And yeah.
I was watching a video of dogs falling asleep.
So you're already on a break. All right.
Sitting down, it's really.
All right. Let's take a break until everybody finishes their survey, and then we'll give everybody a couple minutes after that. Go get a PB&J.
Zach, are there like cool like databases that like public databases about that we could kind of look at to kind of inspire?
What kind of data might you get, or are you interested in? I subscribe to a list, an email list called Data is Plural. And every week, this guy compiles a list of databases or data sets that came out the week before that are really interesting and releases them
How frequent are they?
once a week.
What's the name of it?
Data is Plural. So that's a good one. You can do, you don't necessarily need data already, right? You have to be collecting data. You can do, like, think about anything that you would like to have as an app. Like last time, 3 people built apps that had something to do with beer and like ways for them to track what breweries they'd been to, what beers they'd had, like that kind of stuff. And it just so happened that 3 people were really interested in beer. One person did a homebrew app so he could have different recipes of homebrew that he tried, stuff like that. Thanks. Does anybody have an idea already that they're thinking about for the final project?
I have 2.
Okay, what are they? Do you want to show them? Do you mind sharing them with us?
One is both are out of essentially are out of my the scope of what I can do in the time that I have. But one is a potential project that a family member of mine was like, "Oh, you can build web pages, so can you take this?" She has this. She's a equestrian professor
Oh
at
wow.
university, and so she has this data that gets compiled, and she's trying to teach her students about the health of horses, and so she wants a GUI interface for the data.
That's cool.
So I was like, if there's an API, then yeah, it's possible, but at the time, I don't know how to do that. I just need the concepts on how to complete it.
Yeah.
I couldn't do it, so
If
maybe I
she,
could do that, but the visual portion, I would need her help in a short amount of time, and she just had a baby. I don't know if that's actually possible, or to fake it. I don't-
yeah, you can make it up
I don't know
yourself.
about horses, so,
Yeah, you can make it up. If
Yeah.
you've got the data, it's like we'll learn how to seed data into a database.
so you can grab it, so I don't have to, someone doesn't have to set up the API for me or anything like
Well, you
that?
can build your own API for the data.
Okay, I'll just wait for class to ask all the questions about that.
Yeah.
So,
The
yeah.
class, I think, next Thursday,
Okay.
we'll have everything we need in order to build APIs ourselves.
Yeah, cause that was one idea, then I had an old assignment, a university project that I never did, it's like a simple game, but that also seems very challenging, and if I only have a week to do it or 2 weeks, I don't know if I can get that done.
So you can do research, right? Like there's a, I think it's called Phaser.js. It's an open source framework that makes it easy to build games. And I built one using it. That's exactly what it's like.
I just wanna put like my friend's face on like a character.
I'm like, did that, or was it?
Yeah. That'd be
Yeah, getting the animations.
it's just
See if this works. Yeah. So this is my game. Oh, it doesn't. You can't see it. There I am. It's down there.
You made this?
Yeah, I made this.
I like the stars. Wow, you can draw really.
So you have to like, in order
And then you can't see it because of the aspect ratio, but there's like ground down there that I just jumped to. But that took, maybe an afternoon or so.
Okay.
to, awesome. Can you edit like the actual characters?
Yeah, it's all just images that you're
Oh, I was
moving
gonna
around.
say, did you build the,
No, I got the
character.
assets I got as part of like a tutorial that I was following.
okay.
So you have to build any assets yourself, or you can get free assets online for games. There are a bunch of websites that offer that. Yeah. Are we all set with our survey? Everybody's all set? Okay. Do you want a few minutes to take a break?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
It was intense, but I'm
Yeah. All right. Let me click myself here. Okay, so we talked about URLs, right? The next thing we need to talk about are HTTP methods, and there's 4. Get, post, put, and delete. These methods are useful for basically like communicating what action we want to perform or want the server to perform. So get, we're asking the server for some data, and the server will send us that data in response. Post, we're asking the server to save some data in a database. Let me say all that again. Post, we're asking the server to save some data in a database. There we go. Put, we want to update some data. And delete, we want to delete some data. If we go back to like the USPS invoice metaphor, this is like what we would actually put in our letter, what it is that what we want our recipient to do when they receive the letter or the invoice. So get, post, put, delete. Oh, that's That's supposed to be a nicely formatted table. That did not work out though. So we send our letter, we have an address. There's a few other things that we need to include in our letter when our letter is actually an HTTP request. We call this metadata. And if the URL is the address, then let's see. I actually don't know what the equivalent would be for metadata if we were sending an invoice. One aspect of metadata is any cookie information that we're trying to save. That's going to let us, for instance, save whether or not a user is logged in. We'll do that with a cookie. So then we don't have to re-authenticate every time they try and do something in the application that requires being authenticated. If the information that our user is trying to update or create requires a certain authentication level, we would include that in our authorization. Content type used to always be HTML because we were always sending HTML to the server. But now, or before, you could request XML, which we don't really use anymore. Instead, we use JSON, which is another content type we can ask for. Basically, what format we want our data back in. And then the origin is where we're sending our request from, our current location. This all forms the request header, which I guess would be like the part of the envelope on the outside that like has all the information on how to get this invoice to whoever it's for. More than just like the address. The next part of our HTTP request is the body. This is the actual data that we're going to send. If someone adds a to-do to our to-do list application, the body is going to be a to-do that they want to save. We don't just want that to exist on the client. We want to save it in the database somewhere with all the information about that to-do. What it is, what its status might be, if it's completed or not completed, the date that it was created. We prepare our package, we send it off, it gets to the server, and the server has to respond. We've asked the server for something, the server is always going to respond. But it's going to respond in a bunch of different, or it has a bunch of different options, and how it responds depends on what happens when it processes that data. If things work out well, it will send back a response to us that says so, with whatever accompanying data that is. So if we've sent a cookie, it'll send that cookie back. The overall format will be the exact same, so we'll have all the same headers. The body is up to us. It could be the item that we just saved, or it could be the data that we've asked for in our GET request. The type of response will be determined for us as the client by the status code. What's a status code? Yeah, 404. 404 is probably one that everyone's aware of. Sorry?
500.
Yeah, 500. What do these all mean? What is,
It
sorry?
has like so many things.
So many things.
500, that's a server error, right? Oh,
Yep.
500 range is a server
Yeah.
error.
Yeah, so we have ranges starting at 200. Each range of 100 means something, like an overall group, and then each individual number has a more specific meaning. So the 500 range means that there was an error on the server. 500 being a generic server error. 503 means that the server isn't available. This could be because it's getting a lot of traffic, and so it can't respond to any more requests, so it's not available. It could also be that the server is down. What's another status code that we may use? Yeah, what's the 200 range? Success, profit. Has anybody used a 301 or had a 301? Yeah, what's
not
that?
a 301 error, it's like a 301 and 302 redirect?
Yeah.
Prevent a permanent redirect from an original location.
Yeah, I think that's 301. Yeah, so we hit a URL. That URL is not the appropriate URL to be sending a request to. So we get a 301 response back with the correct URL, saying that URL is permanently moved. And then the last one is the 400 range. What's the 400 range?
It's not big.
Sorry?
It's not big.
Yeah. There's a problem with the request. It could be that the request was bad. 403 means you're not allowed, it's forbidden. 404 means it's not found. That's probably the most common 400 status code error that you'll get. So that's the server's response. We packaged up our invoice, we give it the address, all the other information we need for it to get to the right place. We've given it a body, which is the message that we're sending to the server. And we've handed it to the postal service guy. He's taken it off to our server, and the server is processed. They're going to send a 200 error, and then they're also going to send a message back to us that follows the exact same format. It'll have a header, it'll have a body. The HTTP response header is going to be just like our request header, yeah.
Are you gonna see an example of this HTTP package?
Are we going to see an example of this? Yeah. Ta-da! No. Sorry. I'm being facetious. We will talk about this when we go into building our first server. We'll see how we can send specific responses back. You could, for instance, always send a 404 response if you wanted, but then your application wouldn't work, and you wouldn't make that $1 billion that your idea could be worth. Otherwise, I don't really know how I would show you that.
Console.
Yeah, we can dig into the console and look at it there. So those are all of the requests that this HTTP request triggered. So I'm going for a specific route, which is this one here. This is my URL. And then within that HTML page, there are a bunch of other files. We're going to send off an HTTP request for each one of those. We'll get the status, the type of request. We also get to see its size and the timeline of how they get delivered. I don't know if we can script through that, no. But here's each individual file. Here are the headers. So our URL. This is the response header. A bunch of other stuff that's in there, including let's see. I don't think we have any cookies. No. Here's the request header that we just talked about. The request body would be the file itself.
How did you get them? You're in a network tab.
Yeah, and then you hit refresh, and it'll record all of that information for you. The last part of our response is the response body, which we just saw can be a number of different things. It can be an HTML or an HTML page. Someone's sending back the web page that you're trying to visit. It can be CSS or JavaScript. We just saw an example where the request was, or the response body was JavaScript. It could also be CSS. And then as we'll see when we get into APIs, it can be JSON objects. There. So our metaphor that we're working with here is sending something through the US Postal Service. What's the first step in that process? So what's the first thing that we need to make our request?
Send.
A job so you can buy a stamp.
A job so you can buy a stamp. Let's say we have a job. We're self-made millionaires as software developers. And so we can afford all the stamps we want.
Okay, go to stamps.com.
Oh yeah, we go to stamps.com. All right, okay.
So do we need a stamp first, or do we?
No, we need an address. Thank you. What's our address? When we're talking about HTTP, what is the address? Yes, the URL. That's absolutely right. So we've got our URL. What else are we going to send as part of our request?
Data or the letter?
Yeah, the letter itself. That's going to be which part of our request? 2 parts. One. So that's going to be part of the URL. Yeah, the body. That's the content that we're trying to send as part of our invoice or as part of our letter. The other is the header. What kind of information goes into the request header?
So we can write back or?
That'll be part of the response.
What other than HTML is being used?
Well, I haven't unpacked that one.
Like, if they're using JavaScript, like what are they calling to site?
What do we want back? So we'll put cookies in our header. That's a big one. That's an important one to remember. That's so that we can save a cookie from one sort of page, transition to the next. We'll send it to the server. The server's going to send it back to us, and then we'll have it again. Otherwise, we would lose it.
Origin?
Yeah, the origin, where we are. That's a good one. That one's in there. And then the one that you were getting at, which is the content type. Like what we want, what it is that we're looking for back. What format we're looking for back. HTML, JSON, something like that. Okay, so we've sent our request, we've packaged everything up, we've given it to the postal service guy. He goes off and gives it to the server. What's the server going to do with our request?
Store it.
Store it, yeah. I don't know. How's the server going to know what we want to do with our request? Yeah, method. So the action that we ask the server to do. Somebody name one of those 4 methods. Get. Somebody else give me another one. Post.
Delete.
Yeah, delete. What's the last one? Put. Yeah. What do each of these do? What does get do? Oh no. Get. Sorry.
Retrieve data.
Yeah, we're asking for data back. Post. What does post do? Yeah, save the data. What about put? Update the data. And what about delete? What? I don't know about that one, guys. Yeah, that's absolutely right. That's my mouse. Oh, wow. Okay, so we're going to tell the server as part of our package what it is that we want it to do. It's going to respond. What's that response going to include? Yeah, the status code. So like what kind of response it was. For instance, when you put in the wrong address in a postcard and you get it back and it has that big stamp on it saying return to sender, it's like a 404. Like, that didn't work. This is not a good gateway. Not a good path. So let's assume that we got a 200 status code, which means that our request worked. The response is going to contain those same 2 parts as the response did. That is the header and the body. What's going to go in the response body?
Success message?
We've already got the success message.
The stuff.
Yeah, the stuff. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. So our JavaScript, our CSS, our HTML, our JSON, anything like that. All right. Oh, here we go.
What's the importance of sending a
So that we can save it from one like page to the next. A cookie is like transient data. I don't know if this is how it still works, honestly. I think the browser might save that data now. But you'll have information in your cookie. A cookie is really just a string that we can parse into an object, a JavaScript object. But we need to save that cookie from one session to the next. So if you're logged in, you'll have a user ID, which is a really, really long, complicated, completely random string that identifies you as a unique user. And so when you go to your URL, we'll send that cookie. As part of its process, the server is going to check that string and make sure that it matches a string that it is like maintaining in memory, so that you are actually logged in. And then if you are, send you back the data you requested. That's why, for instance, if you're in Facebook and you're on your Facebook newsfeed and you click the button at the top to go to your messages, you don't have to re-log in. The Facebook server is maintaining a list of everybody that's logged in. And in your request, you're sending in as a cookie your unique ID for you being logged in. Is this not answering your question?
Is this something that my browser creates? Or
It depends. It's something that you can create on the server or something you can create on the client. Yeah. Okay. So we can look at this chart. It's in the slides for you to review later. Now is when I had scheduled for us to take a break, but our light bulb exploded and that kind of threw a wrench in things. How are people feeling about all of this? Pretty good? Do we want to take an actual break now before we start coding? No, we want to keep going. Who wants to take an actual break? Wow, all right, that was easy. Great. All right, we're going to build our first server. Everybody should do a git pull upstream master to make sure you have all of the latest code. We have an exercises folder in the folder for this class. This is class 10 on Express. In that exercises folder, we have two subfolders. One called first server and another called Pokédex. We're going to be in that first server folder. What's that?
I only have one.
Have you done a git pull upstream master?
Yeah, I just did it.
You only have Pokédex?
Yeah.
Huh. Oh, that's why. Okay, we'll just have to create our first server Pokédex. GitHub is not, the folder is empty other than the solution, which is hidden from GitHub. So when I ran a git push, it saw that folder was empty and didn't push it because it was empty. So everybody create a folder called first server or something like that.
Is it in the
I have first _ server, but it won't matter, whichever you want. In the exercises folder, excuse me, for class 10.
Is Node considered like a client because you can view after you run stuff like in Git Bash?
That's a
Or
great
is it like
question.
both?
So when you're running Node, you're running a Node REPL, which stands for Read, Evaluate, Front Loop. It's like an interactive version of Node. So I don't know how you would classify that. I would still classify it as the server, just because that's really what we use Node for, is for the server. But in many ways, it's not really either.
Yeah.
Here we're just interacting with Node, which is like a server-side JavaScript runtime. Okay. So we've got our folder where we're going to build our application. We're going to need to download a bunch of third-party packages in order to build our first server. What tool do we have to help us manage third-party packages? NPM, yeah. So the first thing I'm going to want to do, is get NPM set up in this directory. How do I do that? NPM init -y to accept all the defaults.
Wait, how do I make my first server in a folder rather than just like a regular file?
What command do you use to create a folder?
Yeah, like dir.
Yeah, absolutely. Make dir.
But I made a file first.
Remove
So
the
do I
file.
need to delete the file? Okay.
Yeah, just for clarity, I would delete the file. Okay, so npm init-y. The first package that I want to install is called Express. How do I install a package using npm? Yeah, npm install save Express.
You need to install.
Sorry?
You do need to do npm install as well.
I just did npm install. npm init first. npm install -- save Express.
And we're doing this on the server folder, right? Not on the folder.
In the exercise folder, create a folder called My First Server or something like that. Do it in that folder.
Oh, we have to navigate to it?
Yes.
Not started.
Oh, I just named mine starter.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So made a folder, we run npm init. Now we're running npm install -- save Express. Has anybody not run npm install Express? Okay, I'll give you guys another minute.
If you do it, can you install it on the parent and then install it on the child itself?
No, you'll have to go into this folder. This is the folder where you have to have your package.json file, and you'll need to run npm install there.
So I've already done the npm install on the parent.
You can just build your application there, but then inside your folder you won't have access to Express.
So I could do it at the root, in the worst case scenario. Or can I uninstall it?
Do you mind talking to Christine, actually? All right, so we run npm install Express. Now I'm going to touch index.js. This is the file where we're going to build out our server. And then I'm going to open up that file in Atom. So here I am, index.js inside Atom. So there are 4 things I need to do in order to build out my first server. Why don't we do it like this? Everybody take your hands up from your keyboard. Watch. I will walk through those 4 steps. And then afterwards, we'll go back through them together, and that's when you guys can do them. Does that make sense? Okay. So for now, don't worry about getting this code down. Just focus on listening and thinking about what's going on. Okay, so I have a blank JavaScript file here. What I need to do is get that Express package that we just downloaded into this file. How do I do that with JavaScript? Yeah, through require. So var express equals require express.
How come you don't need to do the dot, the dot in like forward slash?
Oh, why don't I need an absolute path? This will work with NPM to get that package. So I can just do express and it'll get the express library from my node modules folder. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I was just wondering like how, because I know that like in like gulp files, you don't have to set the path,
Yeah.
but I was always assuming I just know that it's looking like in node modules, but here, like how are we saying that this is gonna refer to my node files?
It'll do it by default as part of just how require works. If it doesn't find a file called express in our root directory.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So that's step one. I've got express in my application now. To get started with express, I'm going to create a variable called app, and then I'm going to run express as a function and save the output to my variable. This is going to do a whole bunch of stuff on the back end and then give us an object with a bunch of properties and methods that we can work with to then build our server. This is just a function, and it's just going to return an object. We could console log the object if we wanted to, and it would have a ton of stuff in it. So that's step two.
Sorry, what is Express?
Express is a framework for building servers.
You don't have to declare it as a function before.
That's what this is doing.
Okay.
This is going to go into the Express library in our node modules folder and get that function and save it to this variable Express.
What are some other frameworks for building servers?
Happy, H-A-P-I, Connect. There's one called Loopback, but I think it's built on top of Express. Happy and Express are the two big ones.
Ember is front end or
Ember is front end. So require express, run our express function. Now we get this object, this application object, for us to build our server. What we need to do is build out the logic here for which requests we can respond to. If you think back to when we were talking about client-server communication, the client is going to ask our server for something. Here's where we're going to define what we can actually respond to. And we do that with what's called a route. So in Express, it looks like this. This is our app object that we just built out. What do we think get is referring to?
You are.
The HTTP method. Yeah, that's what get is referring to. This is the HTTP method. This string is the path that we will respond to. And then we have a callback, a function. This is sort of structured on how we build event listeners on the front end. Can you guys see the similarities? We're working with our app object. Everything, all of the routes that we define will be with our app object. We're going to define the method that we're going to be responding to, and then the path that we'll respond to. So this is a GET request at a root URL or the home page. And then we have our route handler, this function. This function gets passed two arguments. The first represents the request that was made by the browser. And the second represents a response. Both of these are built by Express for us and provide a bunch of ways for us to actually like work with the data that we get back. So if we submit a form, the data for that form will be in our request. Or if we're submitting a post request with Ajax with an updated to-do list, that to-do list will be in our request. And then our response, how we're going to respond, or how our Express application is going to respond, is built into this response object. This response object has a method called send, which will finalize our response and actually send it back. We're done processing. So this will finish this route handler here. All we're going to do is send the string hello world. So that's step 3. Step 4 is to actually initialize our server. And we do that like this. This is going to set that port that we were looking at when we talked about the URL. So our machine is going to be listening on port 3000 for incoming requests and send them back through port 3000. This is actually going to initialize that process for us. Express is going to do it all inside this listen method. So I'm going to come back to the command line, and I'm going to run node index.js. We get that string that we put into our listen function, which shows that this is working. There we go. There's a string hello world.
That's a server.
Yeah, we just built our server. Yeah.
Server and database. Databases live in a server.
Databases live behind the server, and we'll talk about that next class when we talk about databases.
So right now I'm thinking that you just posted something in a database and then it's showing, but that's not what you did.
Yeah, you're going to send any information to the server, and the server is going to send that to the database.
Okay.
That's a great question. So we have any number between 1 and 9,999. Yeah, any number. And I can show you that. So I'm going to close this. I'm going to come back here. Let's do 4,000. So that didn't work. There it is. Cool.
So this means that we can build as many as application that we want on our local server and just give it a different port number?
Yeah, but we're reserving this port number, but it's not permanently tied to this port number. So if I close this application down, then another process, another server or whatever, can use the port 4000. Yeah. So there's some common ones like 3000, 4000, 1234, 8000, 880, 8080, excuse me. And I don't know why some are more popular than others. It's all like subjective. You can use any number you want. Great. Do you guys want to play around with this a little bit?
Is that just the best practice app for numbers?
Yeah.
The limit that you have for the numbers?
Yeah. You'll almost always see it be 4 numbers. In fact, I've never seen it not 4 numbers.
But 4,000 and just 4 are 2 separate.
Yeah. Well, what would happen if we did it as 4? Oh, it didn't like that. Let's try adding all those zeros in. Oh, it didn't like that. Alright. Yeah, so I guess it has to be 4 digits. I bet you, actually. Oh, yeah. So this is a weird thing about JavaScript numbers. I put in 0400 and I got the number 256 back. Because JavaScript numbers are super weird. And what it's doing there is, because our number starts with a 0, it's becoming, what's it called? Yeah, whatever that is. Octal? An octal number? A math thing. It's converting it to a bitwise number, which is 8-based, and so we get 256.
So that's why you can't report that down to 0.
Yeah, so that's because the port starts with 0. We could do 1,000. That's it. What? Why can't we do 1,000?
You have to pick 9,001.
Because what?
You have to pick 9,001.
Oops, that's not gonna work.
How did you see what you wrote down on the browser?
It worked for 2,000. Yeah, you go to localhost, and then the port number. Oops. So I'm going to copy and paste all of this into the general room. Or not. Here we go. So it's there if you want to copy and paste it. What we're doing here is defining what requests we can respond to, right? I said that before when we were building this out. This is an exclusive list. So anything else is going to return a 404. That's right. Yeah. And I get/test. So if we want our application to respond to some request, we have to define that. So if we want /test to work, we actually have to create a route and a route handler for it. Oops. There we go. We get this work. Now, every time I change my index.js file, I have to stop my server and restart it. That's super annoying, and we don't want to have to do that. So we're going to download a package called NodeMon, which is going to restart our server for us. So I'm going to come back to the terminal. I'm going to close this, and I'm going to do npm install save dev. Save dev because we only want to use this in development. What's that? Oh yeah, Control C.
How's it know when we're in dev?
It'll know to save something as a development dependency based on that flag. So save dev.
So if you want to push it to like production, I was trying to figure out what you changed that.
In your package.json file. So this will list NodeMon as a dependency under a separate list in our package.json file for development dependencies. So if we were to ship this application to production, when we go to install all of our dependencies before we start our app, it won't install NodeMon. So now what I should be able to do once this loads is NodeMon index.js. Yeah, there we go. Cool. We get this pretty message saying that NodeMon is working. And then that message that we printed out when our server started up. So now if I come back here, let's create another method, another handler. So we've got our, homepage. I'm going to change this to say, this is my website. And then I'm going to create another route here, app.get/about. Requests and response are typically abbreviated as rec and res, like this. So then we'll res.send. Just like that. So I saved this, and if I go back to my terminal, it restarted because it detected that I changed that file. So now I can go back here, and /test, when I refresh, is not going to work anymore because I deleted that route. But I can go to the home page and see the message that I added there, or I can go to /about and see the message that we defined there.
So do you save all the HTML and JavaScript there?
Here, what we're going to do when we build our next server is we're going to tell Express that we're using handlebars and tell Express where it can find our handlebars templates. And then what we'll do is we'll pass, when we res.send, when we're sending our final response, we'll pass in the name of the template that we want. And Express will compile that template into HTML and send the final HTML file for us. Yeah.
So after you install
NodeMon?
yeah, then what's the step between this and installment? Was there something we put in
Oh, so when we ran our server using Node, we typed Node and then the name of our JavaScript file. Instead, when we're using NodeMon, we type NodeMon and then the name of the file.
How do we get the link to the browser?
Through the localhost:3000. It's the name of our port. Oh, you're on a Windows. That might be different.
No, it's the same. I had a firewall issue.
I did that when I was running through Node through Git Bash. Yes. I said, okay, firewall, after that, it's still.
My node one cannot be found.
If you run into an issue with NodeMon not being found, try installing it globally. So npm install -g NodeMon.
Is there space between npm and install?
Yes.
And then it's npm dash install?
npm install. I'll type it.
Sorry about that.
No. That didn't work?
No, I'll just get some.
Try it with sudo.
I see the code inside.
That's another question.
Sure.
So in the real world, when we have a path, instead of, when we have like HTTP path posted, so instead of this, like above, we'll put the absolute path of our,
Yeah.
and HTTP. like-
Oh, no. You don't have to put the absolute path here. You can use, or rather, you don't have to put the host here. That was the part of the URL that is like www.mariam.com. That's the host. We just need to put the path, which is everything from the slash afterwards. Yeah. That's all we're putting in here.
I guess,
Okay. So what we're doing here is everybody ready? Can I move on?
Will I not be able to refresh the browser to fuck my changes unless I run the file through my terminal?
So if your server's not running, then yeah, your server won't be like working, right? So you won't be able to accept requests. So you'll get an error in your browser. If you, and then otherwise you have to save. If you are making changes and you're not using NodeMon, you have to shut down the server with Control-C and then restart it again with a new file.
But using NodeMon, you should be fast.
Yeah, using NodeMon. NodeMon does that automatically for you when you save the file.
I don't think that's. Okay, so while you're, using Node.mon, your terminals, can you stop it and then something else in the terminal, but you're still doing this?
No, so if you stop it, it's the same as stopping it running node index.js. So it's going to shut, just open up a different tab if there's something else you want to do, like you want to commit your changes or something like that. Okay. So let's review this real fast and then we'll move on. Does that sound good? Okay. So what we're doing here is a process called routing, defining routes. We're mapping requests to our server to specific handlers for those requests. So when someone asks to get something from our root route, this slash, we're defining a route there and the handler for that route, this function. Inside this express application that we built here by calling the express function, all of these are getting stored somewhere. And then our application is listening on port 3000. It gets a request, and it takes that path, and it searches through the list that it's storing to find one that matches. And when it finds one that matches, it runs that handler.
When you said all these are being stored somewhere, you mean each one of these like app dots, like app or something?
Yeah. So our app object has a list of routes that it's maintaining somewhere for each one that we define. When somebody goes to our server, visits our application, localhost 3000 or whatever it will be when we launch this in production, Express is going to look through that list for the first match that it finds. And when it finds a match, it's going to run the corresponding function.
What other methods do you have for response?
What? So instead of get?
Instead of send?
Oh, instead of send. I'd have to look at the documentation. There's a bunch of options here, but send is the one that's going to say we're done processing. We're done doing any processing that we want to do. We're ready to send our response. So this will actually, finish the server job, whatever it is that we're trying to do, and send our response back to the server, back to the client.
Does response and reds have to like line up? Is it
Do
like the single and double quotes? Maybe we use res and res,
Oh.
have to be res and res.
so these have to be the same for the same reason that event or E has to be the same in an event handler. It's more based on JavaScript. So Express is going to pass request and response in that order to this function as arguments when it calls this function. We get them if we define them as parameters when we define the function. And then internally to our function, there'll be whatever we define them as. So here, I could call this one Beavis. How do you spell Beavis?
I don't like that.
I don't think that's how you spell Beavis either. That was not even
Just roll
remotely
with it.
close.
Just roll with it.
Yeah, whatever.
Come on, where's my head?
B-E-A-V-I-S.
All right. So we can call these Beavis and Butthead. Or, what are some other famous duos?
Okay, so,
Yeah, that's a good one.
Do you always have to pass both, or like just concerned about the response and you just do the response?
So they happen in this order. So if we care about the response, we have to pass in the request or ask for the request. Otherwise, what we'll get is something like this, and we'll think we're getting the response, but this is actually going to represent the request because that's the order that Express passes these in. So we have to do requests.
So we're really just naming them for our own clarity.
Yeah. Yeah. So request and response or rec and res. Rec and res is really, really common. You'll see that in most of the code that you look at for Express. Yeah.
I think I can answer the question, but is there a way you can set the routing to be relative to where the file location is without having to set the individual routing for each content? So if you dump in files and this wasn't a single page application.
So with Node, JavaScript servers don't work like that.
Okay,
You're thinking in terms of like a PHP server, right?
or MVC.
Or-
Yeah,
Well,
I'm thinking of MVC at work where we have this controller file that
yeah.
sets all these paths and there are perks and downsides.
We'll talk about MVC in a couple of lessons,
Then I'll wait.
but you can think of this as like our controller.
Yeah, that's what I have. Okay.
Yeah,
Type it.
that's a yeah. Hang tight on that question. Okay, so we are pretty much done with our server here. What we want to do now is integrate it with handlebars. So start rendering HTML files when someone navigates to our server. You guys ready? Go for it. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. All right. So we need handlebars in our application. How do we get handlebars? How might we get handlebars?
Mustache.
Handlebars and mustache is a mustache style templating language. How do we install handlebars into our program, into our folder so that we can use it? Yes, NPM. So npm install -- save express handlebars. Express handlebars.
Why not just?
There are, and npm registry is public, so there is a package called handlebars, but it won't work with Express. This is a specific version of handlebars that's designed to work well with Express. So that's the one that we want.
And I was gonna say, how come we can have it for our home purpose manually?
Why what?
Just 'cause I didn't remember seeing like build modules for it for the homework.
Oh, yeah.
Because we see the end.
Yeah. So I have the node modules folder ignored by GitHub in this repository. So when you go into the solution, for instance, you'll have to run npm install in order for the solution to work, so that you'll actually get all the packages. But that's a great point. Okay, so I forgot to run mine. There we go. So we're gonna run this. This is gonna download the Express handlebars package into our node modules folder. So if we're ready to use it, I'm gonna close that there, or minimize all that. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna create a folder, and this folder is where we're gonna put all of our templates. I'm gonna call this folder views. That's a convention, which we'll talk about when we talk about MVC, or Model View Controller, when we talk about application architecture. For now, we're just calling it views. I'm gonna cd into views. So let's define 3 templates. We're gonna do home.handlebars. Oops. Touch home.handlebars. Oh, actually, did I show you guys this trick? Yeah, did I show you guys this? Okay. So I can sit here and type touch home.handlebars, project.handlebars, projects.handlebars, or I can do this. And when I hit enter, I'll get all 3 of those files, all with the same extension. Yeah. Yeah, those are curly braces. Oops. So now if I'm in the terminal, so if I ls, I get home, project, and project. And then I'm going to make a directory called layouts and touch layouts main.handlebars. Everybody run those 2 commands, and then we'll talk about why we're doing this.
That's just what you make it. It's just whatever you want.
Oh, okay.
Has everybody run these 2 commands? Make a layouts directory, and then touch main.handlebars in that layouts directory. We're all good? Raise your hand if you're good, if you finished that. Raise your hand if you're never going to raise your hand anytime I ask you to raise your hands. All right. So why are we doing this? One of the key advantages of templating is it lets us be modular in how we write the final HTML file that we're going to send to the client. So our server needs to send a complete HTML file to the client, which is to say opening and closing HTML tags, an opening and closing head, title, any metadata that goes in the head, and then any footer information, maybe links to JavaScript files that we're needing. Are we gonna wanna write all of that for every file that we create, every template that we create? No. So we're gonna have a home page, so we have to write it once. We're gonna need a project page. Do we wanna have to write it again? No. Or for our projects page? No. We want a way to take that information that we have to send and package it in such a way that we can use it, i.e. templating. So what we're defining here is a layout file. Every file is going to extend this layout. So in our main.handlebars file, we'll define the doc type, the opening and closing HTML tag, the HTML header, and then we'll define a point within that file where every other file will get inserted. Every other template will get inserted. Then we only have to write that stuff once. And then when Express is building the final HTML that it's going to send to the client, it's going to use that layout. And then our home.handlebars file, it's going to take the contents of home.handlebars, stick it in our main.handlebars layout file, build a final HTML file, and send that to the client. So let's see what that looks like. We're going to start in main.handlebars inside of our layouts folder. And I am going to copy and paste this. So everything I just posted in the general channel is going to go here. So we're defining the doc type as HTML. We're opening and closing our HTML tags. We're creating our HTML header. We're setting some meta information like the chart, the character set. We're giving our HTML page a title. We're opening the body tag where all of our, the rest of our HTML will get inserted. And then we're doing these 3 curly brackets. Wow, with a variable called body.
Is that like a native variable for?
No, it's not native. This is a way for us to, you can think of it as like a placeholder. We're defining a placeholder, and then when Express is rendering our views, it will know, our templates, excuse me, it will know that this is going to be something else that needs to get compiled. So it'll go compile that, and then it'll insert it here. Yeah?
If you had body with 2 squiggly brackets, would it be the same thing for handlebars or different things?
It would be different. 2 handlebars is how we output the value of a variable. So it would be looking for a variable called body with some value that it could output and would probably throw an error. Which is why we need these 3 curly braces.
And 3 curly braces for entering instead of outputting?
And well, it's outputting, but it's outputting another template.
Okay. Is there?
So then I'm going to go to my home.handlebars, and I'm just going to put in an H1 with example app home, something simple like that.
Why
So-
do you get cool little handlebar, right, mustaches next to yours?
Oh, it's an Atom package that you can download if you're using Atom. It's called like file type icons or something like that. But yeah, I got the JS logo here, I got the NPM logo here, I got these little mustaches.
You totally customized.
Totally customized.
Wait, when do we make the home?
Oh, when we touched all those files in the command line earlier with the curly brackets.
Oh, I may touch projects.
Oh, and then home was the third one that we created.
Oh,
So this is-
still need to cut them.
You'll need to create it. So this is going to be our home page. Handlebars is going to render this, and then render our layout file, and it's going to take the rendered output of home.handlebars and stick it right here inside of our layout. That's the next thing that we're going to do, is configure handlebars to do that. You guys ready? Yeah! Woo! Let's do it! Go! Okay. So we're coming here to our index.js file. The first thing that we need to do is bring handlebars, the library, into our server. So var, I'm going to abbreviate it to xphps is equal to require express handlebars. I'm going to do var app express, app equals express. And then before that, before I define any routes, I'm going to configure express to use handlebars. I'll let everybody get caught up to this point. Yeah.
Actually, I
Is everybody all here? Everybody's required express handlebars into our project? All right. So now we need to define handlebars as the rendering engine for our application, which we do with app.engine handlebars. This engine function is probably adding these to an object in the back end, or in the back in Express, where the key is handlebars, and then the value is the result of our function here. So somewhere there we have like our app, which is an object with a bunch of stuff in it. One of those things is an engine object, which now has a key of handlebars and a value of maybe an object, maybe another function. Whatever this function here returns. So we're going to do app.set next. App.set view engine handlebars.
So all of these templates are just like JavaScript and JavaScript and JavaScript.
Yep, it's JavaScript all the way down. App.set is going to control some key in our app object, right? App is equal to object with a bunch of stuff and a bunch of other stuff. This is going to have a view engine, which is currently equal to no. But then we're going to run this set function, which does a bunch of stuff. Who knows what? And what it's going to do is set this equal to handlebars, the string handlebars. Then, when we say res.send, or we're going to call another function called res.render and pass it a string, it's going to look at this view engine to figure out what it needs to use in order to render our view. So I'm gonna delete this about route because we're not gonna use that. And then we're gonna modify this root route here. We're gonna modify it to say response.render home. Okay. So app is equal to some object, and it has a bunch of stuff in it. Engine is a function. This is probably going to set a value in maybe like engines, which is an object. This is going to set the value handlebars to, let's say, a function, which is going to be the function returned by our express handlebars function. This is going to get evaluated, return some value, and we're going to save it here. Express is going to save it here. In our route, we're going to call a render function, which takes a template as a variable, as a parameter. This render function is going to look at the view engine property to figure out what view engine it should be using. And then from that, look up the engine in our engines object and get this function back, and then pass this template here into that function, where this function is handlebars. So it's then going to figure out how to render. That function is then going to render HTML, return that final HTML output, which will then send res.render here is going to call res.send with the final HTML.
Just be sure, like this app object, you're just kind of breaking out what's happening above.
Yeah, this is just to explain what's going on inside Express.
And if you wanted to like look up documentation on like what each of these were, we'd be looking at the Express documentation.
Yeah, yeah, the Express documentation. All right, I'm going to save this. I'm going to come back to my terminal. I'm going to run nodemon index dot, oops. Oh, I have to go up a directory. I was still in my views directory, so I had to go up a directory. Now I'm going to run nodemon index.js. My server is going to run. I'm going to come back here and go to localhost 3000 and boom. Here's my H1 example app home. Woo! Fireworks, yeah, question.
How do you comment in handlebars?
How do I what?
Write a comment in handlebars? Comment on handlebars template.
That's a good question.
Forward
You can use, yeah.
Say again, /.
You should be able to use regular HTML comments.
Try that, I got an error.
Oh, interesting. What were you saying?
Oh, sorry, I was in the desktop, the JS file.
I was in the, what am I found? I'm in the handlebars file.
I don't know off the top of my head, but I bet you the documentation will tell you.
Okay.
Yeah.
I saw exclamation point and
Yeah.
that was interesting.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Can you go to your next year?
Yeah.
Yes.
Did it work?
Yeah.
All right.
Oh, no.
So, yeah.
Very general random question. You know how when you like enter a URL at the end, you can put a slash or not?
Mhm.
So,
Do you mind asking that during office hours?
Sure.
Okay.
thanks Google it also. Okay, here's the answer.
Okay. So we're going to take this up a notch, which is something I've always wanted to say. Hopefully this is an appropriate context. So instead of home here, we're going to pass in a variable called title using handlebars. This is the syntax we learned last time. We're using these double curly braces and then the name of our variable. I'm gonna bring this over here. That did not work. Okay, never mind. Too small. I'm gonna come back to my index.js file, and then to my render function, I'm gonna pass an object. This object is gonna have a key title with a value of text. And I'm gonna save that. And when I come back to localhost and refresh, we get test.
Wait, was that with 2 or 3?
2.
Oh, because it's a variable. That
Yeah.
was that.
Exactly. It's a variable called title. It's going to pull from this object.
So like, could you theoretically have like 9 different titles or something? Like 9 different website titles based on like where you were? Like,
Yeah.
is that like why you use something like that?
Oh, this is just for to like show that this is how you're going to pass data. What we'll do when we talk about databases is here we're going to get something. So database.get, and we'll get a bunch of stuff. Var data, and then we'll pass that data object in here. And then in our template, we'll pull out the parts of that data object that we want. Which is actually what we're about to do right now.
What is the home for it?
That's the name of our template. If I open up the tree, it's this template file right here. Yeah. All right. So what we're going to do is build out a project to-do list. We'll build out the rest of these templates. Let's go ahead and do that first. Should we do that first? Let's build out all our templates first, or all of our routes first. How about that? So we've got our root route. The one we need next is one for projects, plural, and then one for project, singular. How do I define a route? Let's do projects, plural, first. How do I define a route for projects? Who wants to walk me through it?
Copy paste that whole way.
All right, I'll bite.
And then add about after the slash.
About?
I'm sorry, about you said projects. And then response out render
About?
I'm sorry, I don't know why I keep going about. It's because
Yeah.
Yeah.
Projects, perfect. Let's open up our projects. Let's do an H1 and let's just make it say projects.
Wait, so do you not need to declare the full like HTML tags because you're going to be inserted?
Yeah, this is going to get inserted into that main template or layout file, layout template. So we don't have to do that anymore. Woo!
Would you do like an underscore for that file name or something so that it's like clear as like this is an include versus the main file?
Yeah, there are lots of conventions around that, like how you manage partials and stuff like that. Yeah, we're putting it in a layouts folder, which we're doing intentionally because when we define a layout, Express Handlebars is going to look for a layouts folder with all of our layouts in it. So if I go back to my application and I go to /projects, I get that H1. So that's pretty sweet. Okay, so now what we're going to do is in our index.js file, all the way up here at the top, I'm going to create a variable called data. which is going to be equal to an object. This object is going to have, bless you, projects, which is going to be an array. And then within this array, I'm going to have 3 objects. Each one is going to represent a project, an individual project.
Wait, what?
I copy and pasted. How about I copy and paste this data object into Slack, and then y'all don't have to type it all out.
Page? Wait, I have an error.
Yeah, I also get it.
Whole page.
You only have 3, right?
I only have 3.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So now what we're going to do is in our projects row, we're going to pass that data object. Sorry?
But I'm also making
Oh no. For your in your index.js file? What errors are you guys getting?
Oh, just,
Are you getting linting errors?
I didn't fail to look up the.
I'm just gonna copy it, so
I made it, I set it on her so it won't throw an arrow when she doesn't have a second.
no, I didn't like how the brackets
Oh, so this whole file that I'm working off of is pasted in the general channel. If you want to just copy and paste it. And you're still getting errors? Am I getting errors? Yeah, I am. So that's why you guys are getting errors.
Well, when you get an error, you have 2 IDs.
No, I'm getting an error because I have a open bracket somewhere that it doesn't like appear on line 6. Oh, because when I made my object, I pushed the wrong key. And so rather than putting it in an array, I put it inside of another object, which is obviously syntactically not correct.
You don't have bar app express anymore?
I do.
It wasn't pasted in the Slack.
It's down here.
Okay.
So I just posted this new object into the general channel.
And sorry, are any of the other files supposed to have other things on them?
Oh, because I forgot a colon. No, we haven't added anything to any of the other files.
What's on the home.handlebars file?
Oh, we haven't changed home.handlebars.
I know, but like, I don't think I missed that.
Oh, okay, so you did,
Okay.
Oh.
No wonder that wasn't working.
Why does project have to be an array instead of an object?
So we could do it as an object. We would just need to give each a key, and then the
Oh,
project
okay.
itself would be, yeah. So we just want an array of objects, each object representing a project. Okay, so and then we're passing this data object into our project's template. Is everybody at this point?
What's the data?
Those render.
Data is that variable that we created up here
Okay.
with all of our projects in it. So if we go and we refresh the projects page, nothing's going to happen. We are passing this data object into our template, but then we're not doing anything with it in our template. So let's do that part next. So we're going to do if projects, then we'll create a UL. And then we want to do each.
Can you try to get this to work on a local machine or blockchain?
Whichever you prefer. So I am going to paste this in the general channel. I'll try and do that for everything so that you guys can just watch and then you don't have to worry about furiously typing it yourself. So if projects,
What does that mean?
if we have a variable called projects that is not null, right? So we actually have projects stored in our variable. We're going to create an unordered list, and then we're going to loop over our projects. So for each project, we're going to output a list item that contains a link. The link is going to go to /projects/ID, so this.id, and then have as the text for our link the title of our project.
Where are we telling it to move? Each.
Yeah, each.
Just when we get 4 loops down, you tell us a different kind of looping thing.
Yeah, well, this is a handlebar solution. Yeah. Okay. So let's see. Let's check. So we don't have any errors in the console down here. So let's go to our page and refresh. And there we go. It worked. When we finish this, we'll take a break. So if you're feeling like, I don't know, worn out from all this, the end is in sight. You can get a PB&J soon. So we've rendered a list for our projects and for our home page. If I go back to the home page. Each one of these is going to go to a route for an individual project. What's going to happen when I click on one of these links? Nothing's going to happen?
Oh, no, it goes to that page. Which doesn't.
404.
Yeah, 404. Cannot get /projects/0. Because have we defined a route project/0? No. So there isn't one in our application. We don't have one here in index.js. So who wants to help me define a route which will handle a specific project?
Can you do like project /asterisk? Since like you have like an unlimited number of.
Yeah, I like what you're thinking. Let's get the route up here first. How do I define a route with Express?
Let's be careful. I don't like that word route. Like it doesn't mean.
Okay, what would be a better word? What word would you like more?
Well, what is a route?
What is a route?
Isn't it the same thing as a path?
So the route is the combination of the path and the method. Basically, what method we want to perform on this path. Route is what it's always
Is
called.
that,
I
is
don't
that
know.
entire like app.get?
Yeah, this is how we're defining a route. This is the path, this is the method, This is the route handler. You can think of it, yeah, like you're traveling. So it used to be that we would actually have a folder called /projects, within which we'd have an index.html or an index.php file. And then within that, PHP or HTML file for each individual project, or folder rather. So we'd have a folder called projects, and within that we'd have a folder called 0 or war or something like that. And we would actually be going into the file system of the server to get this out. And that's where this comes from. That's how URL syntax was originally designed. And it's never been updated.
Maybe that's your $1 billion idea.
Sorry?
Saying maybe that's your $1 billion idea.
Maybe, yeah. Come up with something better than this.
So is this where you would set query parameters too? Like, could I do projects and whatever? Do I make this up in here?
Yeah, so we're not going to set query parameters yet. That's going to be for something else. What we are going to do here, though, is set a URL parameter, which is slightly different. This is kind of like the asterisk idea that Lindsay had. This is going to be a placeholder for a value in this route when that, like, a value that has meaning. So this is going to define a parameter for our route called ID, not too different from the parameters that we define when we define a function. So we're setting this parameter called ID. And that ID is going to represent the ID for a project in our project list. Where do we think we access this ID value?
JSON file,
In a JSON file? These are all good guesses. What did you say, Marvin?
the data you pass in.
The data we pass in. Well, where specifically?
What do you mean?
So my request as a browser looks like this: /project/0, where 0 is the value for my ID parameter. So I'm requesting
This,
Data.
I'm requesting
Well, it's
So
the.
a project with an ID. Sorry?
Request,
Yeah. So Express builds this request object to represent the browser's request. This is a parameter that I'm defining in my URL with a key of ID. So var ID is going to equal to request.params.id. Params is an object inside of my request object with any parameters that I have in my route or in my path. So this is going to be the string 0 or the string 1. What I want is to turn that string into a number so that I can do something like var project equals data.projects and then get the project that has that ID. Yeah, so we're going to parse it. So var index is equal to parse int ID 10. And then we're going to run response.render, passing in project, singular, as well as our project object.
Why is project a string and a value? A variable.
Why is project a string? So ID is the key for our ID value in our params object, right? Params is just a normal JavaScript object. So it has key value pairs. That value is a string because Express is taking it from the path here. It's cutting it out, probably using splice or something like that. Maybe not splice, but it's taking that ID value out. And it's not going to do anything with it because that would be very opinionated. How's it going to know what to do with it? So it's just going to give us whatever that value is, which is a string. So when we do request.params.id, we're pulling whatever value is stored in the ID key in this params object, and we're getting back a string. So ID is the string that's whatever is here in our URL, which in our case is 0, a string of the number 0. That's why we have to use parseInt to get a number, and then we're going to use that as the index in our projects array to pull out whatever project is at that index.
So what's the string for? The render project quotes.
Oh, this?
Yeah.
Well, what is it for up here?
Oh, the URL?
Close.
The path?
Close.
No, it's not. There's no S at the end.
It's
Is it the file?
here. What is it here?
Oh, it's the file. It's
The
name of
template.
file. Yeah.
The template. Yeah. So here we're saying we want to render the project template, and we want to render it with this bit of data, which in our case is a single project. Okay. So we're done here. What we need to do now is define the project template, which is currently empty. Right? So here, I'm going to create an H1, which is going to include the title of our project. Then I'm going to have a paragraph tag, which is going to include the description of my project. And then we'll have a link to go back to the home page. As well as a link to go back to /projects. And I'm going to copy and paste this into the general channel. Sorry?
Slittermans.
Yeah.
So like CMS, they're like doing this stuff automatically, just like whenever you add a page, it's just kind of.
It's doing all this crazy stuff. So I'm going to come back here to my browser. I'm going to refresh the page. And boom, there we go. Our individual project. Go back to the code.
So my projects isn't listing the if.
Yeah, same for me.
I would check this data object that we're passing to it. Make sure you've got this in quotes. I don't know if it needs to be. But what's likely happening is we're looking for a variable, but it's doing that because projects or whatever it is you've got isn't defined. Sorry?
It's not passing data.
Oh, okay.
It's under project.
So there we go. So we have to pass that object into our render function so that Handlebars can render our template with the data that we pass it.
Is yours also passing in the header from main?
No. So we set that as the layout when we did this.
What's
So
the
now-
main?
All right. We are done with our projects. This is our first server and our first server-side application. It's a lot, right? So this light bulb threw us off. Normally we would have taken a break before we would have started this. And like, yeah. So this is a lot, so it'll probably take a while to like process. We're gonna get started on the Pokédex exercise after our break. So everybody, very important, stand up, go get a drink of water, run some laps, have a PB&J, get your blood sugar back up, have a soda.
Could you Slack index?
I can Slack index, or at the end of class, I'll add all of this with the solution and then push all of it.
Oh, that makes more sense actually.
He's broken. There you go. I can follow with you. I think I figured it out. Like one of them, just the main. Right, that's not the server.
Mine only work because it's I thought I had done the same thing. I did sudo install.
I know, like server.
Yeah.
So when I was doing page, it's the same. Is that home dot handlebars? Is that supposed to be in layout? Because I didn't like the name, right?
Main dot handlebars?
Home dot.
Main dot handlebars is the only file in layouts. So home will just be in views. It's over. 5 more minutes.
Can you switch to your home?
Mhm.
My like thing after. So what do I need to do to have it on the homepage? Like actually show up as since it is a lab stuff, and then you put in test or something else afterwards. Okay, that's not showing up for me.
Are you passing in this object?
Yeah.
Have you checked that it's all spelled correctly? Let's take a look.
So that,
So does this object contain a property with a key test? This I have working with key value, right? The key is how we access the property. Our value is down. Yes. Let's go back. What we need to do.
Being a related project.
For the pilot project?
Yeah.
No, I don't wanna. I don't want to.
Yeah.
The like reason I'm in this class at all is because we're doing a project that requires taking an XML file and then like like JavaScript.
Yeah.
Okay. It basically like, we're
Just
gonna,
break it down.
a vendor's giving us text of something, and then we need to type JavaScript, and we're going to see this word, for this thing. So something that uses that,
Some filter.
yeah, like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Before I was thinking, it's like that was too complicated, just do something like that.
That's what's structural. Yeah. I've seen it, yeah, I know it looks unbelievably.
It's just focus on HTML, just like
Oh, that's, whenever I see it though, it's always like, all, just like,
Oh,
just literally characters.
Yeah.
With a lot of like brackets and stuff.
Everything is much.
Yeah, no, we like swaps, like.
Right.
But it should be see.
I didn't see the guy who created data just used XML and his previous life, and then I created that, and so we all know. Okay. So.
Do you guys want another minute? Should we keep going?
Just one more minute.
All right,
Just make it even 9:10.
you're right. You're absolutely right.
So for Mokudex, we're not gonna have to like type out all 150 Pokemon, are we?
That's gonna be the long part. I hope we get it done by the end of class. I should have told you to get a head start on typing.
Luckily, I can just import my local files.
NPM install Pokemon. I should actually create that package. That would be smart.
Probably.
Yeah, it actually might get used a surprising amount. Okay. Yeah, that burnt pretty hot for like a pretty surprising amount of time.
It lasted longer than we jumped.
Yeah, it lasted a lot longer than I was surprised. Than I thought.
And there were like delayed releases, hopefully.
I didn't last that long.
Is that your class?
And I was remembering about friends like going abroad like 3 weeks later, and people were like just now figuring it out.
Yeah.
So like,
What class, like, my server runs fine, but when I try to like just view the site locally, it just crashes the app. It says it's a problem with views.
Oh, interesting.
But I don't think I can get files in this thing, it seems more because
It might be something I would set up. This is the error. So it's looking with views, or it's looking for views. So
did I miss? Did I miss that?
and then we'll drop these here. Otherwise, everything was perfect.
I did have my wrong time, but I'm still, yeah.
Yeah.
Which part of the function ensures that you're going to create all the function
Yeah, I just need to see. So which part of this? Make sure that you're getting the right process. So projects is another. What's current school is using this. So we're getting, say, this is first item. So this first.
Oh.
We could move through this until we found. But the way this was.
Is the new folder express thing, like, you know, tell them? Oh, so it's like hard.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's, so it's part of Express.
Gotcha, okay.
This is looking kind of useful. Same with that. That's a great question. Okay. Oh shoot, actually. Okay, so I have changed directories. I'm now in my Pokédex directory. From there, I'm going to do my work in this starter folder. You're welcome to do your work in the Pokédex folder. It won't make any difference. We have this Pokédex.json file, and then a Pokédex_01.markdown file. So we'll open this up in Atom. And then we can get going. All right. So we've been contracted by Professor Elm to build an online version of the Pokédex. The Palm Pilot looking thing that has all the Pokemon in it and all the information about all the Pokemon in it that Ash carries around. Our web application should have a homepage that lists every Pokemon in order. And each Pokemon should link to a page that lists all the details about that specific Pokemon. Our application will need a server running Express, and then probably at least 2 views, and a layout, and probably 2 or more routes. We're going to work on this for the next 10 minutes or so, and the rest will be homework. All right? Questions before we get started?
I don't know if I have my Pokédex 01 and 2 file doesn't have that in it.
It doesn't? Okay.
No, it starts with been contracted by Professor Elm.
Oh, so if I scroll up.
Oh, but then it stops as a bonus.
That's all it says?
It just says as a bonus in the sentence.
That's really weird.
We have like 3 lines of text in it. Do you, maybe, I don't know. I don't know.
Oh, I bet you what it is go up to View, and then toggle Soft Wrap. Yeah, that's my bad.
No.
That didn't do it?
No.
All right,
Yeah.
let's figure it out after class. Okay. We've got this JSON file. This is where all of our Pokemon are, with all the information about them that we're going to display. Yeah. Okay. So what's step 1? I'm in a folder where I'm going to build out my Pokédex. What do I need to do first?
Create those like pages.
You want to create the templates first? Yeah. Maybe we could run npm init first. And then after we've run npm init, let's install Express and Express handlebars. Right?
So we're doing this after we.
Yeah, we just ran npm init. Now we're going to install Express and Express handlebars.
Can you add that save flag at the end or will that not work?
Oh no, that will work. I'm going to hit enter, and this is going to install. All right, so we've installed Express and Express handlebars. What do we need to do next in order to build out our server? Where will we build out our server?
It's one of the things.
Yeah, so let's touch index.js. And then we'll open that in Atom or in Sublime. So let's start by just getting a server running that responds to a root route and sends the string, this will be my Pokedex, or something like that. What do I need in order to get that, to achieve that first step?
So we find express as a variable.
Yeah, so var express, we're going to require express. Then we're going to do var app is equal to express. We're going to call our express function. What next?
Require express handlebars.
We don't need express handlebars yet, but we will after this step. Our first step is just to get our server running, listening on port 3000. And then when we visit our root URL, we just see a string that says whatever.
Yes.
So the route.get.
Yeah, so we have to set app.get or set a route. So app.get. What am I going to do in my route handler? Or I'll wait for you guys to type this, sorry.
That's not set.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Now there's one more thing I need to do in order to have a working Express server.
Is it the-
Yeah. App.listen 3000. This is going to start our application so that we can send and receive messages through this port 3000. On a physical machine, this is a way to get in and out of the machine, right? Like it's a connection to the outside world. And it's kind of acting the same way on our machine. So all of our messages, for instance, when we get a URL, will come through port 3000.
Wasn't our last project on this port as well?
Yeah, I've closed the last project. I should have said that. So you can use a different port here, like 4000, or you can close the last one.
Is
As
that
long as
mean,
you-
like not running?
Yeah.
or whatever on
Exactly. As long as the other one's not running.
How do you,
Control C.
oh. It controls you on there.
In the terminal. where your server is running. All right. So if I run this with index, we go to the browser to port 3000, I get that string. Boom. Step 1, done. Now for step 2, we want to set up handlebars. Sarah, do you want to get us started with that?
So var and then exp HBS.
Perfect. What else do I need? I don't need the exact code, but like conceptually, what do I need to do next?
Do you need variable to call function about it?
Close. We need to tell Express that we're using handlebars. Yeah, so we're going to configure Express, our application, to use handlebars.
What did these 2 lines do? You mentioned they connect handlebars to Express?
Yeah, that's what they're doing. So that when we call res.render, Express will know to use handlebars to render our templates or to build a final HTML file that will then send to the client in response to their request.
How does it know that this name is in layout?
By convention in Express.handlebars.
If I put it in a different folder, that do I have to require this app?
So it's going to look in a layouts folder, and if you don't provide a layouts folder, it will throw an error. Same with, we have to have our views in a views folder, otherwise it will throw an error. And that's just how this package is configured to work. Yeah. So within our layouts folder, we could have multiple layouts, and that's fairly common. You would, for instance, maybe have a parent layout, and then a layout for a page and another layout for a blog post or something like that. Here we're just setting the default layout. So all of our pages will use this by default. And there are ways that we can change that, but we are not going to worry about them. Great. So, okay, we're all configured to use handlebars. Do we have any handlebars templates that we can use? No. So let's do that, and then we'll be done for the day. So what do I need to do in order to create my templates? Yeah, we just talked about it. So I'm going to make the views directory, cd into views. I'm going to make a layouts directory, and then touch main.handlebars in there. And then for now, I'll just touch home.handlebars. Actually, I'll wait. So I created a views directory, a layouts directory, and then my main layout. We know from the instructions that we're going to need one page to show a list of every Pokemon in the Pokédex, and then another page to show all the details about a specific Pokemon. So how many templates do we think we need, and what will those templates be?
Who's Pokemon is in Pokemon?
Yeah, we can do that.
Pokemon?
What is the plural? I think Pokemon is the plural. I think Pokemon is the plural of Pokemon.
Maybe list of Pokemon,
What about home?
I guess.
And then Pokemon.
Why did you make?
Oh, I didn't make it again. I closed that line so that I could walk through why we're doing this. So there's only home.handlebars and then Pokemon.handlebars in this file.
Why do we, then that's why we have reviews and layouts.
So your layouts directory should be inside your views directory. Yeah. Good.
So are views your data and your layouts are your templates?
Everything in the views directory is a template. A layout is like a parent template.
Okay. Oh, great. Wait, sorry, views is in layouts.
Layouts is in views. So let's look at the tree. How about that? This is our file tree. We've got our root directory. Inside of it, we have a views folder. Inside that, we have a layouts folder. Inside of our views/layouts folder, we have main.handlebars. And then inside of views, we have home.handlebars and Pokemon.handlebars.
Why do we put Pokemon.handlebars out of the layout? Why do we put those out of the layouts?
Why would we put it? So our layouts are parent templates for our other templates to extend. So Pokemon is going to get rendered into main.handlebars. We could put it anywhere inside of our views folder. We would just need to supply the full path to get to that file. For now, we're just doing this. We're not going to put it in layouts folder because it's not a layout. It's a single view for a single Pokemon. But that's why. Okay. So we're all set. We're at class. We're at time. The remaining instructions are written out in this file here. Walk you through all the steps right here.
How do you read the JSON file?
How did we read a JSON file before?
Just write it as it.
Yeah, so that's all we have to do.
So the bar dictionary equals required.
Yeah, that would be fine. Okay, so we are at class. So if you have any more questions, I'm going to be here. Otherwise, fill out your exit tickets and then feel free to go home. What's up?
No, the actual images of Pokemon in JSON file.
No.